Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewińsi and this is Military Mind. Armed conflicts, defense and security, land, sea and air. We've got you covered. Wednesday night was marked once again by Russian drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. Officials in Kiev report that more than 100 drones were used to strike various regions of the country. A fire broke out in an Odessa warehouse as a result of the nighttime Russian drone strike. According to preliminary information from rescue workers, there were no casualties. Russian UAV strikes also caused fires and injuries to 5 civilians in the Kharkiv region. Now, moving on to the front line, Ukraine's military has denied Russian claims of advancing in the country's northeastern Kharkiv region, particularly in the city of Kupiansk. The Russian Defense Ministry said earlier on that its troops had captured about half of the city in a military update published yesterday. But Ukrainian analysts rejected the Russian statement. The Kiev-based Deep State project claims that Russian troops were even spotted in the city center, where they moved freely for some time. However, these were isolated movements by the Russians without securing positions in the city. Deep State also noted that the presence of the enemy on the northern outskirts of Kupiansk is not new, and the rather prolonged existence of a grey zone is a demonstration of this fact. Now, it went on to add that the Russians are making constant attempts to penetrate the city and are trying to gain a foothold on at least the outskirts in order to increase their numerical presence for further advancement. To increase their chances of establishing a foothold in the city, Moscow's forces are trying to take control of the surrounding area, which is why there is fighting, in particular for the village of Mirovye, which would become a gathering place for Russian infantry. According to Deep State, the Russian invaders are also trying to infiltrate the city and increase their presence by dressing up as civilians. Meanwhile, the last hospital in Konstantinivka has now ceased operations, according to the hospital director. The reasons given are the danger from daily Russian shelling and a shortage of doctors. The city is located 10 kilometers from the front line. Before the full-scale invasion, the hospital had provided assistance to more than 100,000 people, and following the onset of war, it accepted patients from Bakhmut, Toretsk and Chasiv Yar, which were at the very center of the fighting. A new piece of footage from the front line once again confirms that there are no limits to the ingenuity of sappers. This video shows a soldier literally knocking explosive out of a Russian FAB aircraft bomb with a sledgehammer. The process looks extremely dangerous, but at the same time shows how important it is to dispose of enemy ammunition. After all, such aerial bombs carry hundreds of kilograms of explosives, and every gram of TNT can become an additional resource for the armed forces of Ukraine. Everyday sappers risk their lives to eliminate the deadly gifts left behind by Russian aviation. In the hands of specialists, even fragments and knocked-out explosives are turned into weapons to be used against the enemy.
Працюємо.
Ukrainian intelligence has recorded a new instance of Russian attempts to find unconventional ways to infiltrate their positions. This piece of footage shows a group of invaders moving through a sewer system on what appears to be homemade vehicles. These are rather peculiar carts or platforms that allow them to move through the pipes at low speeds. The Russians have previously used such methods for underground movement, but it is currently unknown whether the video shows the same technique. Apparently, the concept of safety, once again, is conspicuous by its absence in the Russian army. Remember how the Russian troops have tried to use a gas pipeline to ambush Ukrainian troops? Well, that didn't really work out, did it? A number of casualties because of asphyxia, and the other Russian troops basically suffering from long-term lung injuries. Not a great approach. Anyway, moving on to the next one. In the Donetsk region, a unit of the Ukrainian 25th Separate Airborne Brigade demonstrated precision work against a fortified enemy position. The crew, with the call sign Phantom, detected and accurately hit an enemy dugout. The strike was precise and devastating. The shelter, which the Russians considered reliable, was reduced to ruins, along with the forces stationed there. This is another example of how the mobility, experience and coordination of the paratroopers allow the armed forces of Ukraine to take out enemy strongholds one by one. Despite the Russian attempts at camouflage, few such hideouts can offer safety when faced with the ingenuity of Ukrainian troops. Given how, according to certain reports, Ukraine is actually among the biggest manufacturers of drones anywhere in the world, I guess the Russians might actually have to rethink this whole invasion thing. Anyway, we are moving on. New footage from the front lines shows a rare M55S tank, which Ukraine received from Slovenia. The combat vehicle found itself in a difficult situation, stuck in a swamp. An IMR-2 engineering vehicle came to the rescue, however, pulling the tank out of the trap. Little is known about the combat use of the M55S. These vehicles are likely used in a limited capacity, particularly for firing from covered positions. At the same time, open sources have confirmed the loss of 2 units of this type. One was destroyed and another was damaged. The M55S tank is a modernized version of the Soviet T-55, equipped with improved armor protection and fire control systems. Although there are not many of these vehicles in Ukraine, they still perform their tasks on the front lines, confirming that even refurbished equipment such as this can be useful in modern warfare. Well, hopefully this one isn't recreating the infamous tank of the lake meme anytime soon. Anyway, we are moving on. Innovation, Russian style, is our next topic. The Russians are trying to improve their equipment to counter Ukrainian interceptor drones. Now, in this case, a rear-view camera was installed on one of the Russian Gerbera suicide drones. The idea was simple: to see any drones or projectiles approaching from behind and be able to dodge the attack. But the theory was shattered by Ukrainian know-how. The Ukrainian Samurai unit detected and shot down the target, proving once again that no expertise will help the invaders when professionals are working in the sky. The Russians are also trying to apply similar modifications to the Shahed drones, which, by the way, are basically the originals upon which the Gerbera was actually based. However, as this case shows, even with additional eyes, their drones remain helpless against high-quality Ukrainian air defenses. And with this, we conclude this edition of Military Mind. Stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.